Tough it, man! Alright, it's the Young Hawk here, back with a follow-up video. Because you guys seem to really be interested to see what LA Knight got up to before his WWE run. That video was covering his several-year stay of TNA, where he was mostly misused, but got to show his godly mic skills. It was a pretty frustrating video to make. His talent was clear, but they were just too distracted to focus on him properly. He eventually left TNA under controversial circumstances when he refused to lose a match to women's wrestler Tessa Blanchard. But before he made it to the WWE, there's a whole nother chapter to his story, albeit a short one. My advice, watch this one while you can. Anyway, I'm fascinated to see where the WWE go with LA Knight. His rise to the top seems to be very slow. I wonder if they're wary of him because he's 40. Let me know down below. So let's get into it. It's Eli Drake and NWA Powerr. Will it be another piss shower? Eli Drake. In June 2019, an ROH event, it was announced that Eli Drake had signed an exclusive deal with the National Wrestling Alliance, who were making a comeback with their new TV show, Powerr. The show would only be an hour, but they were hoovering up anyone leaving TNA and the best available talents on the indies. They were the third biggest company in the US for a very brief period of time. The TV show would be kicked off following the excellent storyline 10 Pounds of Gold between Nick Aldis and veteran Tim Storm. It felt like this would be a TV show for people who just want to watch wrestling without the bull. He's still going as Eli Drake at this point, by the way, and that's what I'll call him throughout the video to the best of my ability. Straight away it feels like Drake is being positioned as the future challenger for the main belt. He's the second person to cut a promo on the show after Nick Aldis, who's the main guy. He threatens NWA champions and says the wrestling business is full of children, but NWA is where the real men will wrestle. Plus a bunch of his catchphrases, which you would expect to hear from him. I'm interested to see if Drake can step out of Nick Aldis' shadow, because he's clearly the face of the show.
You look around, you see a couple guys carrying gold belts. You look at James Storm. You look at Nick Aldis. Each and every one of you with a belt. Keep your eyes open, because I'm coming for you.
Drake also wrestles on the first show against young former TNA talent Caleb Connolly. It's just a 4-minute match, which Eli Drake wins. Not much to say. Drake is quickly knocked down a rung in the company. Another former TNA wrestler, James Storm, was the NWA National Champion, and he was the one who was next in line for a shot at the world title. Drake cut a promo kissing Storm's ass. The promo establishes that Eli Drake is going to be aligned with James Storm, and also that he'll get a world title shot from James Storm if he ever wins the big one. He didn't. Honestly, I don't get what they're trying to do with Eli Drake in this company. Every week he comes out and kisses somebody's ass. The latest person is Tim Storm, who's thinking about retiring because he can't regain his world title. Drake desperately tries to persuade Tim Storm not to quit wrestling, and he's practically begging him and reminding him what an important wrestler he is. He ends up pleading with Storm to team up with him for some reason. The whole time Drake is cutting his promo, he's trying so hard to rest his arm on the interviewer's shoulder, who's basically taller than him. It looks so stupid.
You're ready to give up. You sound like you're ready to quit. And I don't understand it, because out here, I hear everybody giving love to Mama Storm. That one loss? You think that one moment is enough to take away what you've done? Look down the line, man. Your name's on the list. You look at Ric Flair, Harley Race, Lou Thesz. They're all there, and guess what? So are you.
So that gives us the match of ass kisser Eli Drake and veteran Tim Storm having a tag team match against the Dawsons, a team who have indies written all over them. Drake feels a million miles from the main event. It was during this match that I realised that they're doing this new thing where they say that Eli Drake can hit a net breaker from any angle or situation. So it's a Diamond Dallas Page gimmick. The Dawson twins beat Tim Storm with a double team move, which means two things for Drake. Number one, he's lost a match against two indie wrestlers. And number two, Drake told Tim Storm not to retire because he was still a great wrestler who could win matches. But he lost, so Drake is losing, and he's wrong. Colt Cabana and James Storm argue about title opportunities. Drake marches up looking like an electrocuted porcupine, kissing James Storm's ass again, and reminding him what a great champion he is.
You've been in Nick Aldis' face for so long, asking for your shot. He hasn't given it to you.
Nick Aldis, the world champion, arrives as Drake desperately tells him that he respects him and doesn't have a problem with him. Drake sounds absolutely terrified of him.
I ain't got a problem with you. I'm going to tell you right now, if you carry that, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You are the best wrestler walking today.
Aldis responds telling us that Drake doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke or do drugs, and his only vice is wanting to be like Nick Aldis. Drake's just stood in the background during this promo looking like the biggest dork in the world. He doesn't even get to respond. A match is made with title implications, but despite being James Storm's friend / ass kisser, he isn't actually picked by James Storm for his team in the main event. I don't get it. Colt Cabana and James Storm clash for the national title, and Drake accompanies Storm like a ring valet. What the hell are they doing? But Drake isn't the only one who's being bitched out, because Mr. Ken Anderson is also getting the same treatment. He is the ring backer for Colt Cabana. During this one, Anderson and Eli Drake come to blows on the outside, because they both want to back a winner, I guess. Maybe it's a case of the winner has promised a title shot to their friend, but it hasn't been made that clear, and that's no excuse for going to full ass kissing mode, literally every time you get on the mic. Drake is scared of Mr. Anderson, and Drake is saved by Camille, who is a woman. I can't imagine this sitting well with Eli Drake. Maybe it was a rib based on the stuff that happened with Tessa in Impact. Cabana wins the match too, so I guess Drake backed the wrong horse. Drake tries to follow up by cutting a promo where he threatens women's wrestler Camille, and also the man she manages, Nick Aldis. He desperately tries to convince us that he's next in line for a world title shot, with the crowd frantically chanting any name but his. Drake is interrupted by a tag team who tell him to stop messing with Camille, and Drake responds saying he's going to make her squeal his name.
And if there's one guy who can make her squeal, it's he! Excuse me!
Anderson gives Eli Drake a jump scare. He probably thought it was somehow the Sandman. He says boo and walks off. Drake is about to respond to that amazing promo when the production team cut away. This is horrible. He looks like a gone-off salmon. So the crowd pretty much hate Eli Drake and interrupt his promos chanting for other wrestlers. It's like the opposite of a modern day LA Night.
Looks like they have a new fan favorite.
Just like a bunch of dummies, but I'll put it to you like this.
Drake will feud with Ken Anderson next. This could be good. I mean, both guys are great on the mic. It's a shame they don't have a real good reason to be feuding. Drake smashes him with a metal turnbuckle, which isn't something you see every day in wrestling. Eli cuts a promo now about everyone that he gets compared to in wrestling. He acknowledges that he's compared to The Rock, and that he's compared to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And he also says he's compared to Ric Flair. Can't say I've ever heard that comparison. Let me know, what are the similarities between these two?
I've noticed that people have said that I remind them of people. People have said that I remind them of a guy who does an eyebrow and he drops an elbow for the people. You ain't gotta boo him. People said that I remind them of a guy who drinks beer and gives fingers. People have said that I remind them of a guy who wears a sparkly robe, has blonde hair and goes, woo!
But Drake is most offended by being compared to Nick Aldis. Drake says he wrestled for the NWA first, and Aldis has essentially come in and taken his spot. I wish they'd just hurry up and have a match. Drake also says that he's compared to Ken Anderson, and the crowd loved him here for the first time. Talking of first, we arrive at the first NWA pay-per-view of the new era, Into the Fire. Eli Drake and Ken Anderson will fight in the opening match of the pay-per-view with nothing on the line at all. It's a pretty straightforward match too. Anderson's just depressing to watch at this point. Bit of a dodgy moment where Drake almost drops Anderson on the gravy train as the move is reversed into a pin. The ending is quite unique though, when Anderson's sunset flip powerbomb doesn't work and Drake ass drops him for the win. At least he won, but a 9-minute boring opener on the show isn't going to help his star rise. Anderson's a bad loser and traps Drake in a chair and throws him into the ring pole. The feud that no one asked to continue is continuing. And believe it or not, that's the very first series of the new NWA done. Based on the first series showing, I can't see why NWA even wanted to have Drake around. Season 2 starts off with forcing Eli Drake to cut a promo where he's almost entirely lost his voice, and not as a gimmick this time like in his TNA run. He's still taking shots at Nick Aldis and complaining about his lack of title shots, but as usual he has ADHD, and his attention is split wanting revenge for the Ken Anderson attack.
Let me talk to you. You're gonna have to work with me here. This is nothing that a couple cough drops can't fix. Just a couple minutes ago, Nick Aldis was out here, and he said, this is the way things should be in the NWA. And then guess who wasn't included in the TV title tournament? Don't you think that's a little funny?
Drake is clearly unwell with man flu, or bird flu as it's known to the Hawk, but they shove him in a no DQ match with Mr. Anderson. They fight in the crowd amongst neckbeards and skullgirls. It's like watching TNA for 2016, but worse. Then it becomes Lucha Underground as they fight on top of a balcony in front of the disbelievers. Anderson tries to throw Eli Drake into a poster of himself, which is blocked, and Eli Drake responds by giving Anderson the people's eyebrow for some reason. Mr. Anderson slams a gate into Eli's head, which actually looked good. Drake smashes him into a chair and beats him with the gravy train. Possibly the tamest no DQ match of all time, but this is NWA and they don't really go for that here. So far, not a single match worth watching on this run. At least he beat Anderson and showed a lot of personality in the match. Now for the high point of this run. Eli Drake had gotten so depressed that during a Christmas episode he marched up swinging a bottle of champagne. He turned to drinking. He cuts a confused, rambling promo about nothing. He continually reminds us that it's a new year. He stumbles over his words and pulls strange faces. The commentator turns down his offer of a drink. He says that he has the shoes of a champion and his jacket is also the shoes of a champion. It's honestly hilarious. Then he joins in Christmas carols but looks smashed, like a brick. Maybe now the Ric Flair comparisons make sense. This is one of the happiest things I've seen in wrestling in the last decade. You know when they say that things in wrestling are better when people have stopped trying? They're just having fun and doing what they want. Yeah, this is a true example of that. There's too many tryhards in wrestling nowadays. Everyone should do a line off Sonny Siaki's ass before they cut a promo.
Yeah! 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 You want this back now?
Yeah.
This guy comes out here and he does a comedy show between the whole damn thing before when we're doing our takes here. Hold on, how about a couple drinks? Excuse me a second. I got to tell you, Christmas time is here again. Yeah. You want a swig?
I'm working.
Yeah, so am I. These right here are the shoes of a champion. This jacket right here, shoes of a champion. I'll put it to you like this. 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 32-on-1, 102-on-1. Oh boy, yeah. Yeah.
On another episode, Eli Drake is asked what his plans are going to be going into the new year. I love how the commentator asks him because nobody has a freaking clue what's going on with Eli Drake. He complains that he hasn't had a match in a few weeks, and as usual, Eli Drake blames Nick Aldis for this. Hurry up and fight him then, it's been an entire series of these accusations. This is ridiculous, just go and attack him if you don't like him. He reveals that he randomly wants a tag team title shot. Colt Cabana interrupts and says he's fed up with Eli Drake running down Ken Anderson, who's a good dude really. Yeah, he seems like a great guy. He tried to break Eli Drake's neck just because he's a bad loser and lost the match. Real salt of the earth type guy. They talk about Mr. Anderson forever. Why? Colt Cabana makes fun of Eli Drake never winning the NWA World title. Drake actually responds this time and threatens to whip both Colt and Anderson at the same time. He doesn't do that though, instead he teams up with the Cowboy. James Storm must have also been out of things to do because nobody could get that damn title off Nick Aldis. Yay, it's Mr. Anderson again, don't you just love seeing him? It's a nothing tag team match that ends when Mr. Anderson throttles the referee. Please let that be the last time we have to see him in this video. Nobody should have to sit through this much Mr. Anderson in 2019. And then Scott Steiner randomly shows up with an NWA tag belt. He's not actually a champion unfortunately, but he cuts a scathing promo calling everyone fat asses. Classic.
I appreciate the fact that you gave me a call, gave me the opportunity to beat somebody up. I wake up, I'm pissed off. I want to punch somebody out. It's like, I want to punch you in the face right now, you piece of garbage. All you rednecks and ass at home, eating your potato chips, taking all those calories, and becoming fat asses. And I hate fat asses.
He's on the side of the team of Nick Aldis as they take on Robert Gibson, Tim Storm, and also featuring Eli Drake. It's interesting that Eli Drake and Scott Steiner were former tag team champions in TNA, but no mention of that, and now they're enemies. The now bold Scott Steiner destroys Eli Drake with a belly-to-belly and he breaks up his own pin. Eli Drake is completely isolated and I'm pretty sure Steiner almost drops him on his head. This is actually Steiner's second to last televised match, so no secret final run for him here sadly. Anyway, Drake is the weak link of the team and desperately hits a DDT and slowly crawls towards his partners who are both twice his age. Robert Gibson wins the match for his team, which gives his partner Ricky Morton a shot at the world title. Shove this company. James Storm and Eli Drake are still hanging around together for some reason. They spend an entire promo putting over Ricky Morton. He's getting a title shot against Aldis. The priorities are all just wrong in this company. Drake's still trying his hardest to put his energy into these promos, but it's hard to get invested where it doesn't seem to be leading anywhere. He doesn't have much to talk about in his promos.
It's catching lightning in a bottle, and I think it might happen again when we crown Ricky Morton new NWA World Champion.
Another pay-per-view appearance now at Hard Times. It's a triple threat tag match for the tag belts. The Rock and Roll Express, aka everyone's favourite grandmas, are the champions. The Eli Drake elbow is now massively over. Drake beats Grandma with the Gravy Train, and Storm and Drake are the NWA Tag Team Champions. Well, that was random. Lots of respect is shown to the Rock and Roll Express, which isn't a problem, but the major problem is they just go too far with it. There's just not enough edge for Eli Drake here. He's an ass kisser. Eli Drake brags in a post-match interview saying that he told us since episode 1 that he was coming for the gold, and he's proven himself right. This is factually incorrect, as he never mentioned that he had any interest in the tag team gold on that first episode. His goal was for singles gold, and on that front, he's failed.
You see a couple guys carrying gold belts. You look at James Storm. You look at Nick Aldis. Keep your eyes open because I'm coming for you.
They suggest tag team names. They are Beer Muscles, Bottoms Up, and Drinking Buddies. I personally call them Drink. But let me know in the comments what you think. Anyway, I wouldn't give it too much thought though. We all started to get crunched and season 3 was ruined. Drake mostly wrestled on the second show, Shockwave. It was a little bit depressing seeing Eli Drake fight against unknown jobbers in a dark building. Storm and Drake dropped their tag team belts on this Shockwave show against Damien Sandow and the master of the Uber Slam, Kratos. This ended their title reign at 291 days, but they only defended them once due to the crunch. Annoyingly, it's probably the best match of his NWA run. Drake keeps using this clothesline where he runs down the ramp and flies into the ring. I like it. The champions are beaten by one simple smack to the nuts. Eli Drake ended up leaving the NWA during its third series during the empty arena COVID crunch era in December 2020. Officials said that Drake had other stuff he wanted to achieve and he didn't want to stay with the NWA. He also revealed that he had a deal on the table with AEW, but something fell through last minute. Bold boy Billy Corgan has since claimed that Eli Drake was being groomed to take the top spot off Nick Aldis and become the face of the company. But he's made those claims since the rise of LA Knight's popularity. So with hindsight, it's easy to jump on the gravy train. I guess it's possible, it could have been a slow burn to have Drake face Aldis, but I don't know, Drake never felt like he was being built as a serious contender. He didn't wrestle for multiple shows in a row, which is never going to help anyone. The show was completely dominated by Nick Aldis and to a lesser extent Tim Storm. It seems National Wrestling Alliance officials had such a hard-on for that feud that nobody else could have a look in. Drake didn't have a single world title shot. He didn't share the ring a single time with Nick Aldis. Hell, he didn't even beat any of Nick Aldis' henchmen. He didn't have a good match in NWA, and to be honest, Eli Drake looked done at this point. Maybe he was phoning it in and didn't see any sense in risking his body for this show. I can't say he'd really improved at this point from his time in TNA. It's weird that 2 companies in a row booked him poorly when it was obvious that he had more talent than most of the roster. But we all know how the story goes, and next up it was NXT and LA Knight, and if you don't agree with that, you're not very bright.